You're listening to the AmWritingFantasy podcast. In today's publishing landscape, you can reach fans all over the world. Query letters are a thing of the past. You don't even need a literary agent. There is nothing standing in the way of making a living from writing. Join two best-selling authors who have self-published more than 20 books between them. Now, on to the show with your hosts, Autumn Burt and Jesper Schmidt.
Hello, I'm Jesper, and this is episode 148 of the AmWritingFantasy podcast. And Autumn is taking care of some editing today, and while she's away, I've secured an amazing guest speaker for you, because today I'm going to talk to the very talented Jenna Moreci. So welcome to the AmWritingFantasy podcast, Jenna.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super happy to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure talking to you. And I just want to say, for those who might not know, Jenna is a #1 best-selling author of dark fantasy, and she also runs a very successful YouTube channel. So I couldn't think of anyone better to bring onto the podcast today to talk about YouTube for authors, Jenna.
Well, thank you. I'm super honored. Yeah, I kind of fell into YouTube sort of accidentally, or maybe not accidentally, but I didn't expect it to get to this level. So yeah, I'm super down to talk about it and everything that I've learned along the way.
Yeah, because maybe for context, I could just start out by saying Autumn and I, and even myself before I sort of teamed up with Autumn, tried my luck, if you want to call it that, at running a YouTube channel. And my God, it's difficult. And then Autumn and I tried for a while as well, probably like 2 years. And then we transitioned into podcasting. And this is going much better, to be honest. But the YouTube stuff is difficult. So, it's tough getting traction on YouTube. So I'm going to be very curious during this episode here to sort of get your thoughts on it, and maybe some tips and tricks for people who might want to try on their own to see if they can get a YouTube channel going.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been doing this for almost a decade now. So I've been around for a while. I've made all the mistakes, and that's what you got to do in order to become successful. You got to mess up a few times. So I hope I can answer all of your questions.
Yeah, probably. But I don't know, maybe we could just start a bit more on the, not low side. That's not what you call it, but slowly. And maybe you can just share a bit more about yourself, and maybe put a few more words on what you just said about why you started the YouTube channel in the first place.
Sure. So I have been wanting to be, an author since I was 6 years old. It's literally my lifelong dream. And around the time, I heard what a lot of people, are told when they're young, that authors don't make any money. It's not a viable career. You should try something else. And so I started off in finance. I have a degree in business with a concentration in finance, and I got a job in finance. I was a stockbroker, and I hated it. It was driving me crazy. There was a moment where I realized I can't do this every day of my life. I have to at least try to become an author, even if it's just a side gig. I just need to know that I gave it a shot. So at that point, I started writing my first book, and I started trying to build a platform. I researched the industry, and I'm really glad I got a degree in business, because I learned all about the business side of things and being an entrepreneur and creating a platform. And I started, like most authors do, with blogging. And I had a blog for a few years. I had about 200 followers, and I hated it. I hated blogging. I mean, I like to write, but I like to write fiction. I don't like to write about, normal life stuff. So I was blogging for a while, working on my book, trying to figure out a way to expand my platform even more. And a lot of people had told me, you should do YouTube. You're funny, you're sarcastic, you give really good writing advice. I was also doing critiques at the time. So people were like, you should create a writing YouTube channel. And like most introverted authors, I was like, no, like there's no way no way I'm sitting in front of a camera and putting myself on the internet like that. Sorry. Fast forward a couple years, my then boyfriend, now fiance, suffered a very terrible accident. He fell 2 stories and broke his spine. And I had to put, I quit my job. I put everything on hold to be his caregiver. And when you go through something like that, it kind of changes your perspective on life and, how our time here isn't guaranteed. And I had paused working on my book. I had paused the blog, and I just thought, you know what? Like, as he started to get better and I started to build my platform again, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try YouTube. Okay. Like, what have I got to lose? If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But my time here isn't permanent, so I got to make it count. And I started the YouTube channel, made a couple of crappy videos, and started to get the hang of it. Yeah, I mean, that's how it always works. It always starts off with the bad videos, but I started to get the hang of it, and I started off trying to be very professional and oh, I'm a dignified writer, and that's just not really my style. And no one was watching the channel. And so finally I said, you know what? No one's watching anyway. So I'm just going to be myself, and I'm going to be goofy, and I'm going to be cussy, and I'm just going to be my normal personality. And literally the very next video, my channel skyrocketed. I went from 100 subscribers to 9,000 subscribers in a week. And the rest is history. Now I'm at 260,000 subscribers. I really did not expect to be in this place, but yeah, and because of YouTube, I was able to make writing and YouTube my full-time career, and I'm doing a whole lot better at this than I was as a stockbroker financially. I'm making triple what I made as a stockbroker, so it all worked out.
Right, yes. Do you think, actually, considering that it was quite some time ago since you started out, do you think there's a difference in starting, running a YouTube channel today versus back when you did it? Do you think, is it more a saturated market? Is it more difficult now? How do you see that?
Absolutely. I really got in at the perfect time. When I started my channel, I looked for other writers on YouTube, and I could only find 2. And their channels were very small, and they were really young. And I was inspired by that, because at the time I was like 28 and they were teenagers. And I was like, you know what? If these teens have the courage to do this, then I have no excuse. I'm a grown woman. I have no excuse. And now, after my channel kind of blew up, now there are tons of writing channels on YouTube. So I'm not going to lie, it's definitely harder to get started now. The key is to find a way to stand out, and authenticity. Like I said, I started off very professional, very phony, and I wasn't going anywhere. Right. And once I became my authentic self, people really, gravitated toward that, So I think that if you want to stand out in this market, you really have to create quality content that is consistent and authentic, because people want someone that they can relate to and they feel like they actually know.
Yeah, because I think, reflecting back on the time that we spent on attempting to run a YouTube channel, I think once I reflect back to it nowadays, a couple of years since we transitioned into podcasting instead, I think I was very much focused at the point in time around probably thinking too much about how do you make a YouTube video that is engaging, and also because, usually when people watch YouTube videos, at least as far as I've sort of investigated or researched my way into, it's also about, keeping people's attention in a YouTube video. It's very difficult. It's not like the same as a podcast. Here we're talking to each other. People are probably doing their dishes while they're listening to this stuff, and you can sort of do other things, which is very nice. I use podcast a lot for this particular reason myself. But with YouTube, you're competing against them clicking on to Netflix instead or something, right? So you really need to grab their attention. And I found that I was probably overthinking it too much about how to do that best, rather than being authentic, like you're saying. But at the same time, your authenticity has to be attention grabbing,
I kind of liken it to being on a date, in the sense that when you're on, and I mean, like, I hate that analogy because dating sucks, but when you're on a date, the idea is to be yourself, but be the best version of yourself. So right. I'm very honest and authentic on my channel. I talk about the fact that, my fiance is disabled and has a chronic pain condition. I talk about the fact that I have mental illness. I'm not saying you should say all this stuff on a first date, but the point is I keep it real. People know about my life. They know about who I am. I giving them my honest, authentic personality, but you also don't want to be authentic to the point where it's like, okay, you know, this is getting to be like a bummer or a downer or an overshare or something like that. You know, it's like being on a first date. You give them the best version of yourself. I'm not saying that all the other authentic stuff I was talking about is the best version, but people appreciate the honesty. But at the same time, I'm not going to go create a video where I'm ranting because I'm having a bad day. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I had the worst day. I got a bad review and I did this. And, you know, like I show them the sides of myself that, you know, are fun and quirky and, you know, goofy. And people like that because they can relate to it.
Yeah, and I think for most part, people are watching YouTube because they want a bit of entertainment as well. I mean, they can certainly watch YouTube videos also to learn something, but unless it's a bit entertaining as well, then yeah, well, you're probably going to click on something else instead, right?
Exactly. And I think that's the key, is to be entertaining in your authentic way. I've seen some people, because I've just, since I was a teenager, I've been a potty mouth. Like, that's just how I am. My family jokes about it. I don't know if anyone used to watch the show Dexter, but there's a character on the show named Deborah who cusses a lot. And my nickname when I was a stockbroker was Deborah because of that. It's just the way I talk. And so when I'm on my channel, you know, I'm cussy because that's my authentic self. Sometimes I will see other people talk to me and they'll be like, well, I'm trying to be like you, Jenna, you know, like I'm cursing and I'm doing that and I'm not getting followers. And I'm like, well, that's because you're trying to be like me. Like, I am not doing that to get the followers. I'm doing that because that's how I talk. And in fact, I get people commenting like, you're not being a proper lady, you know, like I get people mad about that, but I'm just being me. And people can smell a phony a mile away. So it's not about emulating someone else's entertainment factor. It's about being your own kind of entertainment. There are channels that are really successful where the people are very prim and proper, but they have a cute kind of entertainment style, or their sense of humor is deadpan. You know, you got to do it your way.
So would you say that some people will just struggle a lot to ever get success? You know, because I'm also, it's like, some people might want to be an actor or something, right? But not everybody can be an actor, because it takes some, you have to have this kind of thing to be successful at it. And do you think it's the same for YouTube, that you have to have some sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, but YouTube factor or some, you know, something that makes you entertaining to watch your videos, or the way you speak about things or whatever? Do you think everybody can do it, or do you think it sort of requires some unspoken skill or whatever you want to call that?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think you can absolutely learn to, you know, improve your craft. It's kind of like writing. Like you can learn the skill, you can improve your craft over time, but some people have a natural talent and that makes the improvement and skill, like learning, easier. It makes that aspect of it easier. And there are some people who really, really struggle with a certain thing. Like for example, I'm terrible at all things athletic. Like I have no coordination. I can't even shoot the aliens on the Buzz Lightyear ride at Disneyland. Like I have no hand-eye coordination, and I could practice as much as I want and I will probably still suck. And that's just kind of how it is in a lot of activities in life. So I definitely think you can learn the skill and get better. Some people are more naturally inclined for it. Some people, it's just not for them. And I think the problem is that people don't give themselves enough time to learn where they fall in that spectrum. A lot of people will quit if the channel isn't making it after a month. It took me 6 months to get from 100 subscribers to 9,000 subscribers. It took me 6 months to experience that leap. And now I'm at 260,000 subscribers. So you got to give yourself the time, but you also need to know when it's like, okay, this just isn't for me. You know, I know people who have had their channels for years, almost as long as me, and they have, you know, less than 1,000 subscribers. It's like, okay, well, maybe this isn't really, you know, your forte. And there's nothing wrong with that. Failure is a part of success. You know, it's a part of learning what you're good at, where your strengths are, where your passion is. And quite often, if you're not good at something, a lot of times it comes to the passion element of it. Maybe your passion is, you know, better spent elsewhere. And so sometimes you just got to give something a shot and realize if it's for you or not. But you got to give yourself the time to figure it out.
Yeah, but I think actually that is an excellent good point, because looking at our my and Autumn's YouTube channel, it's probably been there for like 5-6 years. There's 2,000 subscribers on it.
Mm-hmm.
Most videos don't get many views because, well, we moved into podcasting, so it's just a secondary sort of channel. It just sits there. We don't do much with it anymore other than just
Mm-hmm.
uploading these podcast episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the podcasts are getting a much more downloads.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as well that it's a good point, because we gave it a good run, probably longer than we should have, to be honest. But we didn't give up right away. We kept at it, but at some point we also just had a frank discussion between ourselves and sort of said, this is not going anywhere, is it? And it's like, no, it's not. Okay, let's do something else. we did our best, but I think as well that we are enjoying the podcast much more, and that
Mm-hmm.
probably shines through.
Exactly. Well, it's like me with blogging versus YouTube. I hated blogging and I plateaued at 200 followers. It's kind of like with writing, when you are passionate about the story you're telling, it shines through. You can see it in the words. My blog kind of plateaued, whereas YouTube, I get to be silly. I get to be animated. It's a more enjoyable experience for me. It's easier for me than blogging. And I think that's why I was better suited for YouTube. I think that's why my channel is way more successful than my blog, is because you can see that I'm enjoying it more. This feels more on brand. It feels more Jenna,
Yeah. So if people then are thinking, okay, I think I want to have a go at this stuff. I want to try to do a YouTube channel, and I want to be authentic, and I'm going to see if I can get a bit of success with this. Just on practical terms, what would you recommend in terms of, they need a bit of recording equipment, they need some microphone stuff, all the equipment things.
Mm-hmm.
What would you suggest in terms of just getting started? Because you can buy yourself crazy in equipment if you want it.
Right. When I first got started, I just used my FaceTime camera, my laptop microphone, and natural lighting. It's a little bit of a different environment right now, so that might be a bit risky. But what I will say is that the quality of your content matters more than the quality of the video. So if you are going to start off with any equipment at all, I would recommend it being a microphone, because if your voice is peaky or annoying, that's what's going to make someone turn off in terms of the quality of the video. It's going to be the audio that turns someone off. People can tolerate, video footage that is, unclear or grainy. They can tolerate that. They can tolerate bad lighting. They can't tolerate bad audio. So if you can get yourself a decent microphone, that's the equipment I would start off with. I know people who have really large channels and they're still filming on their iPhone, the image itself. So you don't need the camera and the lighting yet. You can park yourself in front of a window and do natural lighting. I would recommend this for when you're just getting started, when you're just figuring out if this is for you. I say this because I know people who spent thousands of dollars right out the gate, only to find out that their channel, it just, no one likes it. They're not good at it. It's not for them. So, start off with a microphone and let everything else be, homemade at the beginning. As you grow, that's when you want to invest in a camera and lighting and things like that. As you start to see, okay, this is a viable option for me. Outside of that, the editing of the video is very important. It's different than podcasts. With podcasts, it's conversational, all that good stuff. On YouTube, time is money. People have things to do, and, they could be watching Netflix or Hulu. They don't have to be watching you. So edit out the ums. If you need to, script your content beforehand. I script all my videos because I am a rambler. So I script them all, or else they'd be like, an hour long of me just repeating myself. Script your videos, edit out the ums and uhs, get to the point, make it, concise. Give them the quality information or, content that you are here for. Get rid of all the long pauses. That's the most important thing to start off with. And of course, being authentic. So if you are just getting started, those are the key things that I would recommend, because even if you're funny and you've got a great personality, if you've got all of the pauses and lagging and the stumbling over words in there, it'll totally destroy the funny. It'll destroy the entertainment factor. So get yourself a good editing program, and it's great because a lot of them are free. You know, iMovie comes with, you know, Apple products. I use iMovie for like 75% of my editing, and I've been doing this for years. You know, you don't need to get the fancy stuff right out the gate.
No, exactly. My oldest son just bought some editing software. I think he paid like $80 for it or something, and it's very good. You know, so it's not even that expensive.
Right.
At least not that part. The cameras can be expensive, I imagine, but at least editing software, that's not that bad.
Yeah, I now use iMovie alongside Final Cut Pro. Final Cut Pro was pretty affordable, and I basically just use that for all the overlays and text and little doodads that float on the screen. But in terms of just trimming your video down and getting the sharp cuts and getting out all the crud that you don't need in your content, something like iMovie works just fine. And I believe PC has something, another free program, but I'm not familiar.
Yeah. Yeah, but then there is also things like thumbnail images, titles of the videos, keywords, and that sort of thing. So do you have any good tips when it comes to those things?
For thumbnails, I would recommend something eye-catching. You know, funny faces always work. I usually am doing a goofy face in my thumbnails. Text that you know is gonna catch your attention. When I do my trope videos where I talk about the worst tropes, I'll write something like, your romance book sucks. You know, it's just like, it catches people's attention. I make a disgusted face, you know, bright colors, things like that. The title is something that a lot of people mess up, and it really hurts their place in the algorithm. People are always trying to make their title stand out, you know, like the clickbait title. That time has sort of passed. And by that, I mean, you can make your title stand out without it being clickbaity, without it being like, I'm pregnant with an alien. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Be specific about what your video is about. Because the idea is you want to get in the algorithm. You want people who are typing in, for example, if I were giving tips for writing a first draft, you want people are not typing pregnant alien baby. They are typing
Probably not.
right,
I hope not.
Well, you never know, but you want to attract the people who are typing in first draft. So put that in the title. You know what I mean? Like if you're talking about romance novels, you want people who are typing in romance novels. So you say what your video is about. And a lot of people don't do that because they think it's not catchy enough, but it's like, you know, go with the common sense title. And then as you work, you'll see that certain words perform better than others. For example, book performs better than novel. So in a lot of my titles, I will say like how to write a romance book as opposed to how to write a romance novel. YouTube gives you all these analytics. So they make it really easy to figure out like what you should be typing and what works. There are also free platforms that you can use that show you, you know, how keywords, perform. A lot of my videos, if it has writing or writer in the title, it performs better than videos that don't have writing or writer. People like lists, you know, 10 best, 10 worst. Yeah. So a lot of my videos have that, you know, and of course, you know, best and worst. Those are sort of the clickbaity words, best, worst. You know, it kind of creates a hierarchy. People like the idea of, ooh, this might be juicy, there might be drama here, you know, and that's where that comes into play.
Yeah, do you do any research when it comes to sort of the topics of your videos? So what should you talk about next week and the week after and so on? Or do you just go with what you feel like talking about?
A little bit of both, but mostly the former. I'd say it's 75% research and 25% what I feel like. And by that, I mean, you know, about every 6 months, I go through my videos and I see how they're performing and I look for trends. I also have a wonderful assistant who helps me with that as well. I know not everyone is starting at a place where they can have an assistant, so
probably not.
Right. So I've been doing this for years. I did it on my own for years. Trust me, you can do it. YouTube makes it super easy. But I go through the videos and I see which ones perform the best, which ones perform the worst. I look for trends, and then I sort of plan my YouTube schedule around that. So for example, my best performing videos by far are my trope videos, the 10 worst romance tropes, the 10 best romance tropes, the 10 worst sci-fi tropes, etc. Those perform the best. You don't want to make your entire channel just that thing, because then it becomes, a one-trick pony. It's not, you need variety, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you want to offer variety. So I try to mix it up with that kind of content along with the second and third best kind of content. And then when I plan my videos, I know what performs best. And then I think, okay, of all this kind of content, what do I most feel like talking about right now? So I give myself a pool of the best performers, and then it's like, what am I in the mood to discuss? And then I will pick and choose from there. Every once in a while, I will do a video that isn't as well performing, but I really enjoy it, or the diehard fans enjoy it. A perfect example of this is my unboxing videos. About once every other month, I unbox presents and books and goodies that fans send me in the mail. They are by far my lowest performing videos, but they are the favorite videos of my diehard fans, the people who are all about the brand, all about the platform, who really love to support me. They are constantly like, when's the next unboxing video coming out?
Yeah.
So for me, it's fine that they're not as high performing, because it makes the people who've got my back no matter what, it makes them happy. So I'm happy to deliver that content to them. But yeah,
and it's only once in a while, right?
Exactly, about once every other month. And it's fun for me. I mean, I get to basically have Christmas all the time and open all these gifts. Yeah. I enjoy it. So
yeah, for sure. I understand that. But there was one thing I was wondering that I definitely added to my list of things that I wanted to ask you, because, and I don't know if this is true or not, so this could just be my, me misunderstanding the situation, or miscalculating, or whatever you want to call it. But I have always been wondering, because when you have all kinds of different authors, often have, the ones who have YouTube channels, they will mostly, like you do as well, they will talk about writing more as almost, it can be fun like you do it, but it'll be writing advice kind of information, more, I would say, mostly targeting people who are interested in writing, meaning other authors and so on. And I've always been wondering, when it comes to actually selling fiction books, if somebody wanted to start a YouTube channel, and the stuff you have to talk about is writing, because that sort of makes sense. Does it actually help on selling fiction books, or is it more like a different audience that you're building, and therefore you're building like a business on YouTube rather, and then you have fiction sales over on the other end? Or what's your experience there?
It can help if you do it the right way. And by that, I mean, I write dark fantasy, action, adventure, and romance. I write adult fiction. My channel is geared towards writers and readers in that group. By that, I mean, like I mentioned before, I have a bit of a potty mouth. My books feature cursing. If you do not like a potty-mouthed woman, you're not going to like my books. Also, sometimes people will be like, well, if you talked a little bit different and you made less raunchy jokes, younger people could watch your channel. And it's like, okay, well, that's not my target audience.
Well,
I don't write young adult fiction. I don't write children's books. I've had people be like, can you make your videos better for second graders? And I'm like, well, second graders are not going to read my book about the fight to the death tournament, So no, I'm not doing that. You need to gear your channel toward that segment. And a bulk of my videos are about dark fantasy, they're about romance, they're about adventure, fight scenes. I gear my content specifically toward what I enjoy, what I'm writing, and thus obviously I'm going to attract a ton of writers, but typically if you're writing fantasy, you like reading fantasy. And I actually have a huge audience base of people who don't write at all. They just think I'm funny, which I really appreciate.
Right.
So they just tune in. They're like, I don't write. I just think you're funny and I like your books, So I've had acquaintances in the past where it didn't translate well. They had a YouTube channel. It didn't translate well into their book sales because their channel's brand was completely off from the book they were selling, like the channel being very professional, being very all ages friendly. And then the book they release is like raunchy, and you know what I mean? Like
Right.
and then they've attracted the wrong audience, and people are like, whoa, this is dirty and salacious. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
you didn't attract the right audience, So you have to be aware of who you want reading your books. That's got to be who you make your channel for, So, if me dropping an F-bomb bothers a person and prevents them from subscribing, that's great, because they wouldn't like my books, So I don't need them. I don't need them in the audience. So it's all about being very cognizant of your brand and the image that you are releasing.
Okay, very cool. Yeah. And I said to you before we started recording that I actually asked in our AmWritingFantasy Facebook group what people wanted me to ask you, Jenna. So there was quite a number of questions, but I tried to pick the ones that I sort of thought was on topic of what we're talking about here, and also would be of more general interest to more people than maybe the person asking. So if you're ready, I would like to just go through some of these questions with you here. Sure. I have 5 for you.
Okay, go for it.
Because Anita asks if it's worth starting a YouTube channel if you haven't published anything yet, or is it better to wait until you're ready to launch your novel? I thought that was a good question.
Absolutely start it before. If you're starting it after, it's like an uphill battle, because the book is already out, and unless you have a big platform already and you've got good sales and things like that. But usually people are starting the YouTube channel in order to to get the sales, in order to boost their presence. So if you've got a big platform, you can start the YouTube channel whenever you want. But if you're doing this for the sake of selling a book, definitely start the channel before. One, because it takes years to build an audience, and you don't want your book sitting collecting dust published for years, and then finally it starts to get sales. And 2, if you start the channel after and then you direct people to the published book and it has no reviews and it's not performing, people are going to be like, oh, well, what's wrong with this book that no one's buying it? You know what I mean? So it's better to start it before. That said, I'm saying like a YouTube channel in general. Sometimes people, I give writing advice, and I also make satirical content about writing. I started my channel before I was published, and I was qualified to give writing advice because I've been studying storytelling. At that point, I'd been studying writing and storytelling for about 20 years. And I had been giving critiques for other writers. They asked me to create the channel. I've had poetry published and things like that. I had some, some content that made me like qualified to give the writing advice. Sometimes people hop on YouTube and give writing advice because they see that other writers are doing it and they don't really feel like they're qualified, but they're doing it because it's, what's going on. If you don't feel qualified to do something, don't do it. You can make a video about something else. You can just track your writing journey. You can talk about, if you're going traditional, you can talk about the query process or something like that. You don't have to give writing advice. So if that's your concern about starting before you're published, then make your video about something else or make your channel about something else.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying there tracks very much with what Autumn and I usually say, because we don't get the question specific to YouTube, of course, but we often get the question about mailing list. Like, do you start the mailing list before you publish the books or after you publish the books? And we also always say start it well before, because That's the only way you can get enough people on that list so you can actually sell some books once you do publish it later on. So it's never too early to begin is usually our motto there.
Yes. And people always think, well, I have nothing of value to say. And it's like, don't sell yourself so short. Of course you have something of value to say. You just have to have the confidence, and you've got to figure out what your voice is and what it is that you want to say. If you have the ability to write a book, which is obviously what you're trying to do, then you have the ability to do a mailing list or a YouTube channel. You just got to figure out what your voice and message is.
Yeah. Okay, so let me move on to Stephanie's question, because Stephanie wanted to know how much time you actually spent on marketing your books, working on your YouTube channel, and writing new books. Like, do you split your time like 20% marketing and 20% writing and so on?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. My schedule, I honestly don't know. What I can say is I work about 10 to 12 hours a day usually. It's gotten a little bit better now that I have an assistant, but it really varies. I wish that I could give a straight answer, but it's hard for me to track because I'm also a caregiver. My fiance suffers from a chronic pain condition, and he's in a lot of like recovery programs to try and build back his strength. So every day for me is very flexible. Every week is completely different. So it's really hard for me to track how much time I spend doing each thing. What I can say is that I usually try to devote a week every month to YouTube. And by that, I mean a cumulative amount of time of scripting content for a month, filming content for a month, and my assistant does the editing, and then I do the little doodads, bells and whistles, the effects, and uploading it. So that is the one thing I can say with certainty. About 1 week out of every month is devoted to my YouTube channel, and then the rest of it is a hodgepodge of writing and marketing.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so and Angel also asked a question, but I am going to paraphrase it a bit here just to sort of boil it down and get to the point of what I think more or less she was asking. But she wanted to know how you basically built such a great following on YouTube. I think you've talked a lot about it already, and maybe there was also a part of you saying that you got in at the right time. But I don't know if you have anything more to add on that question there.
I really think it's because people appreciate, someone being themselves, someone being authentic, because a lot of the things that I get, because obviously I'm a woman on YouTube, I get trolls, I get hate comments. A lot of the things that I get hate comments for are the reasons that people, subscribe. They, appreciate that I'm a straightforward woman on the internet. They appreciate that I'm myself, even if it's not always the most flattering version of myself. They appreciate the fact that I'm willing to dress up like a pizza or a hot dog in my channels if it makes people laugh. Like, being yourself really goes a long way. And also, one thing I didn't touch on is, learn and evolve. If you look at my very first videos, they are not the same as they are now. I've upgraded. You constantly have to learn, okay, how can I make this better? How can I improve? I now have professional lighting equipment. I now have, professional camera and all that stuff. I'm looking for ways to improve the effects, to improve the editing, to, looking for what my audience wants more of. Do they want more giveaways? Do they want more interviews? I'm constantly asking my audience, okay, what do you want me to talk about? So I think that's really important too. Sometimes people get complacent and they get comfortable and then they never branch out and improve. And when you do that, you plateau.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we still, I think we have like probably, I don't know, maybe 200 videos or something on our channel, and I can promise you I do not dare go back and watch the first one because it's horrible.
My first one is long since been deleted. It's like, ooh. But I mean, like at the time it worked, at the time. But like, and that's another thing is you like give yourself time to suck. Everyone is they're so embarrassed to post their first video. They're like, it's gonna suck. It's like, so did mine, and look where I'm at now. I've got 260,000 subscribers. Like, it's gonna suck for a while. You're just shaking off the cobwebs. It's okay. Just get into the flow. You're just embrace the fact that you're gonna suck at first, and that's fine. It's all good.
Yeah, it speaks everything about our personal YouTube strategy that we have not even deleted those ones, the old ones. They're just there.
Well, to be fair, it took me years to delete mine. So.
Yeah. So Rob also was asking a question because he was wondering if organic growth is a better business model for YouTube rather than paying for advertising.
I've never paid for advertising for my channel, so I'm going to say organic growth, but I'm not speaking from a place of personal experience because I've never paid for advertising. I do know other YouTubers who pay for advertising. I mean, we see it all the time. Some of them have really big channels, and some of them, it doesn't really look like the advertising has done a whole lot for them. I think it really depends on the strategy behind it. If your ad sucks and isn't interesting or engaging, people probably aren't gonna be interested. But as someone whose entire growth happened organically, then I'm all for that.
Yeah. What you just said about placing ads and stuff. This a complete detour here, but it just reminded me that it was, I think, a couple of weeks ago. Usually when I exercise in the morning, I listen to music on YouTube, and then of course, because I'm exercising, I can't click the skip button for when the ads pops up. And then this ad popped up, and this guy was talking and talking. It just went on and on and on, and I was wondering, when does this commercial stop? And then I looked at my phone, and it said it was 45 minutes left. I was like, what? This is an ad. What's going on? You can't have an ad for 45 minutes.
Oh, no.
My God.
Yeah. I mean, like, a lot of people, they do not do the research. And I understand that writers are a creative bunch, but it's a business. YouTube is a business. Selling books is a business. Marketing is a part of business. Do the research. That's why even though I ended up veering off from finance, I'm really glad I went to business school, because it prepared me for self-publishing my novels and starting my YouTube channel. And so do the research before you spend money on ads. Make sure you're, spending it wisely.
Yeah, for sure. I have one last question, and this one is not sort of directly related to being a YouTuber, but I thought I wanted to include it because the first part is just something that I always find interesting, but then the second part is just a bit of a weird and funny question. Yeah, I think she was just having a bit of fun. But Terry Ann wanted to know first how much plotting you actually do for your books. And Autumn and I have written a guidebook on how to plot novels, so I'm always interested in hearing that. And then she added, and could you also ask Jenna if the cyborg queen would make an alliance with a chaos potato? I have no idea what that means, but maybe you do.
Okay, so I'll start with plotting. I do a ton of plotting. Like, I'm on my channel, I'm like the outline queen. I'm just like, everyone knows that I'm always going to give advice that upsets the pantsers. If you're a pantser, that's fine. It's not for me. But my outlines are hefty. Like, my outlines are 30 pages long. I plot everything out. I have a method with note cards and organizing. For me, people say that plotting and outlining ruins the fun or excitement. For me, it is the fun and excitement, because it's like putting together a puzzle, and it's like, how is it going to turn out? Like, I love it. For me, it's a very creative part of the process, and it's one of my favorite parts. So I'm very heavily into plotting. As for the cyborg queen thing, so cyborg queen is my nickname, as delegated by my audience. My nickname in college was cyborg, and I mentioned it in a video, and it blew up, and now I'm the cyborg queen. I would be open to an alliance with a chaos potato if the terms and conditions were equal and fair. We can get into it. We need to make sure we're on the same side, okay? We have the same beliefs in world domination.
Yeah, and also the word chaos there might be a bit concerning if you're looking at an alliance, with something chaotic. That's I don't know. How trustful is that? Exactly.
That's why we need to have a meeting and discuss how chaotic is this potato? I need to know.
Yeah, I don't even know what I was thinking. Chaos potato, is that maybe something Jenna has said in a past video or something? Because it felt so odd. Like, where do you get that from? I don't know.
I just imagine a chaos potato is like a mashed potato that's been like splattered across a room. That's a chaos potato, or that just might be a dead potato. I don't know.
Or maybe it's more like you open a door to the room and throw it inside and close the door. Maybe that's what you do.
But then that creates the splattered.
Yeah,
just like
and then you have the chaos inside.
That's a violent potato, man.
People screaming and stuff like that.
Oh,
well,
man.
okay. I'm at my end of my list of questions for you, Jenna, today. And is there anything sort of I should have asked you that I didn't? Some very good advice that we never got to?
Where can everyone buy my books? How about that?
Oh, yeah, of course. Go ahead.
So right now, I'm in the middle of the Savior series. The first two books, The Savior's Champion and The Savior's Sister, are available wide all over the place at all major retailers. They are #1 bestsellers in dark fantasy romance. The Savior's Champion was voted one of the best books of all time by Book Depository, which basically was the highlight of my life. I will never get over that. So yeah, pick them up. They're great if you like your books filled with magic and steamy swooniness and stabby stab die murder, then they're the books for you. Pick them up today. Hey.
Excellent, yeah. And if you you can also send me a link to where people can pick up your books or where you want them to go to, Jenna, then I will definitely put it in the show notes so people can just click through from there.
Awesome.
And it'll also go into the description field on YouTube if anybody's watching there, and then they can go and check out your book. So feel free to send me that link, Jenna.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for coming and having a chat here and offer all your advice and expertise today. I appreciate that, Jenna.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
All right, so next Monday, Autumn will be back, and we're going to do one of our popular, and some people call them dreaded, worst top 10 lists. So see you then.
If you like what you just heard, there's a few things you can do to support the AmWriting Fantasy Podcast. Please tell a fellow author about the show and visit us at Apple Podcast and leave a rating and review. You can also join Autumn and Jesper on patreon.com/AmWritingFantasy. For as little as $1 a month, you'll get awesome rewards and keep the AmWriting Fantasy Podcast going. Stay safe out there and see you next Monday.